Zach Seiler had it all.
How's it going, man?
President of his class, captain of the team, and dating the most popular girl in school. Until she went on spring break.
So I've been dancing for maybe 5 minutes, right? And that's when it happened.
I'm Brock Hudson!
Brock is from the real world, like the TV show, okay?
But they kicked him out of the house.
My condolences go out to Zach, who got dissed and dismissed by his magically delicious girlfriend.
In order to save his reputation, he's taken on an impossible bet.
I'll pick the girl, and you got 6 weeks to turn her into the prom queen. Gentlemen, we have a winner. You call off the bet, you lose. I don't lose.
So anyways, I was wondering if maybe you'd want to embarrass me horribly in front of all these people.
So who's the lucky rebound girl?
She kind of blew me off.
I like her already.
Was this some kind of new dork outreach program?
Find out where she hangs out, what she does for fun.
Don't tell me you guys are on a date.
No, we're just friends.
You're just like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, except for the whole hooker thing.
To everyone here who matters, you're vapor.
I forgot why I avoided places like this and people like you.
Am I a bet? Am I a stupid bet?
This is one contest you're gonna lose. You're going down, man.
Get ready for the film critics call sexy, fun, that's hip, smart, and hilarious. Freddie Prinze Jr., Rachel Lee Cook, Matthew Lillard, Usher Raymond, and Jodie Lynn O'Keefe. She's all that.
And action. We're live here, and surprise, we're on the set of my boyfriend's brand new music video. Jordan! What are you doing?
Okay, let's not freak out.
What did you do this to me? We're over, okay? Touch it! What?
You're still alive.
Oh, shit! Is she serious? Is she a good girl?
Breakups are hard. I was humiliated.
You're going viral in the wrong way.
It will get better. Makeovers are my thing.
When I first met him, he was 120 pounds of bad hair.
Why don't you just make another Jordan?
I will create the next prom king.
You make it sound so easy.
You don't think I can do it?
No, but I do think it'll be fun watching you try.
A bet?
Oh.
I'm in.
Just so you don't make it too easy on yourself. We'll pick the guy.
Hell yeah, that's right.
What about him?
Cameron
Queller, I think?
He is a total disaster. Weird, antisocial.
I don't want to stare at your underwear while I eat, dirtbags.
Great. Cameron, hey. I was hoping I could take a writing lesson this morning, and I figured since you and I are friends,
Friends?
in the sense that we go to school together.
Kind of a loose definition, don't you think? Not bad. You really can't enjoy this without sharing it with like 500 strangers.
Just capturing the moment.
I like it.
Disgusting!
Sorry.
Who's the new guy? A little scruffy, but cute.
Just wait until I'm done with his makeover. He's definitely not what I expected.
So kiss me.
There's more to you than what you let everyone see.
And what if I like it that way?
Kiss me.
You're falling for our little project? Things aren't always the way they seem.
So I was a bet. You can all go to hell.
I really screwed up, Mom.
It's only a mistake if you don't learn from it.
Things with Paget may have gotten a little more complicated than I thought.
So kiss me. So kiss me.
I tried, but Zoom doesn't want to recognize my butterfly clips. I tried.
Look, the more you turn your head, the more animated you can be during this podcast. The more we're going to see them. Yeah,
my head around so we can see all the butterfly clips. They're so cute.
Yeah.
So weird that I had these in the house.
Yeah, yeah. It says a little bit about where you're at fashion-wise, but also where we're at mentally. So it's great.
Yeah. Let's have a lockdown dress up. Why not?
Yeah, fuck it. It's Friday night. Let's dress up. And I was like, I'm going to dress up like the 90s. And then they were like, that's the 80s, Quinny. I was like, oh, no.
Quinny, you have aged out of this podcast, apparently.
Yeah, well, that was always going to happen, let's be honest. I mean, I was I was alive in the 80s. I was alive in the 70s, but like the 90s was the time that obviously you guys were like at your peak.
I mean,
I would say
want to say I peaked in the 90s.
Not peak in the 90s.
Okay, so I mean peak in terms of your consumption of content. We didn't even call it content then; it was just called shows.
So let's say the 90s is when we probably both became pop culture aware. Prior to the 90s, I probably wasn't really picking my own.
Exactly.
Except for maybe Peter Coombs and
Newspaper Mama.
Madonna songs on Rage, which I was obsessed with.
Oh, right. Okay.
Rob's asking if I was in Girlfriend. I was actually in Bewitched. That was my jam.
I love Bewitched. Bewitched was fantastic.
As in the band, not the
7.
show. Oh.
Ain't no party.
I live for S Club 7.
I'm just hoping.
Sorry, I'm just being honest.
Okay.
Just being honest. I was a Hanson fan, and I'm not ashamed of that.
No, nor should you be.
Bob was a
very
single.
My sister was all Spice Girls. I was into Usher.
You were obviously cooler than me.
I may have watched
I grew
it.
up in the inner west.
Oh,
It was
right.
all gangster rap and R&B.
Admittedly, okay, so I grew up in Tasmania where it was mostly AC/DC and Metallica. Technically still the 90s, but a different vibe of the 90s. Yeah. Look, you've got some love in the chat for people who love Hanson.
Missy, Boys to Men, yes. I don't know if you've seen that special on, I think it was on Netflix.
Yes, I have.
Oh, that was good.
I watched it 2 nights ago and I was like, shit, that they were massive.
Yes.
Like back in the day, Boys to Men were just huge. And I was astonished at how quickly they fell off that perch.
Yeah.
That was sad. It was a little sad. But good doco. It's a documentary series about pop.
Yeah.
And I cannot for the life of me remember the name of it. But yeah, really good.
So here's my question that I have been pondering for the last year or so, but particularly recently. The TV that we had in the 90s, I enjoyed it. Yes. I thought it was great. But was it that good to justify the amount of 90s television reboots and legacy sequels that we're getting on our screens at the moment? Discuss. The entire night is just me being like, I mean, I liked 90s television, but like, was it that good? Or why are we rebooting everything from the 90s in the past 5 years to varying levels of success and quality?
Yeah. And it's funny, like when you sort of first mentioned it, I was like, there's not that many out there. And then Peter being Peter, put together a comprehensive dossier. It was a sexy dossier. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah, right. Okay. There is a lot. And some would say that the well is now being gone back to so much that it may in fact be dry.
I don't know if it's dry. There are lots of things that have been rumored that kind of haven't hit yet. I think that the 90s is a very mineable well. And I think given our little Zoomer friends have kind of glommed on a bit to 90s fashion in the way that things do tend to come about every 30 years or so, I think it's a bit like, I'm almost like, wait, were we cool? We weren't cool. That definitely wasn't cool. But cool kids are wearing that shit now.
It's so weird because for fashion, the 90s and the early 2000s was atrocious. I have very strong recollections of lots of leggings, lots of like bubble socks, weird cords where I would match the color of my socks to my top, and my leggings were a different color in between.
Rave.
Yeah, I'm like, it was bad. Really bad.
So for me, I remember the 90s being a lot of, acrylic, a lot of big floppy T-shirts and a surprising amount of loose pants, like a la Happy Pants.
Keppers. Just saying that word Kepper.
I don't know the word Kepper.
Amazing recollections for anybody else.
What's a Kepper?
Keppers were this brand of baggy jeans, and they were the street jeans. So like Crisscross wore Keppers, but they wore them backwards.
Yeah.
It was a lovely like soft tensile denim. They were
so yes, I was about to say tensile jeans and crop tops. I just didn't know that the brand was Keppers.
Yeah, right. I'm like telling words here I don't understand. But when you say
tensile
what they
jeans
look
were
like,
huge. Like you had to have tensile jeans, and you would wear it with like a little halter crop, like the Spice Girls, and butterfly clips and glitter, and potentially platform, like bad platform heels, like velvety, chunky platform heels.
Oh my god! I just remembered. I used to have a floor length velvet skirt that was just like straight long. I used to wear it with like a white top similar to this and a belly chain.
Oh my god, belly chains.
Body jewelry in the 90s.
Anklets, toe rings.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yep.
A whole thing.
God, I'm just
thank you, Chiquita. I do look great in a halter top as well. Like my crop is always just below where the edge of the frame is.
High school, like it was a bad time.
But the thing is, okay, we're looking back, and we're looking back at it with, sort of ironic kind of stuff. But at the time, I remember thinking, holy shit, people look cool. Like, in comparison to the 80s, in comparison to the 70s, I looked around at these people and I was like, shit, they look cool. Like, their big chunky jackets and stuff like that, and their jeans and stuff, damn, they look cool. And the grunge kids with their cool shirts and everything, I was like, fuck, they're cool.
Yeah. Like first season of Buffy.
Emo kids.
Like everyone looked
Oh
cool.
my God. Buffy's wardrobe in first season of Buffy was like totally my jam. I actually had a small child mistake me for Buffy once when I was a kid. Tugging on her mum's dress, Mum, it's Buffy. I'm like, with my button-up top and my skirt.
Right. I wish that I had a flat enough stomach that I could wear crop sweaters. Like, that's the only thing from the 90s I want to wear again, crop sweaters.
Yeah. I was, to be honest, I was too self-conscious to wear anything crop. I wore a crop halter once to a school dance, which my mother encouraged me to wear, and I spent the entire time with my arms wrapped around my belly because I just couldn't handle it. My mum bought it for me. She was like, Pity, you know what? You gotta let go.
We were certainly not the sexed up 17-year-olds that you saw in the movies of the time.
No.
But let me just say about the movies of the time, if not the television shows, but the movies of the time, particularly teen movies and romantic comedies, the 90s birthed a lot of absolute classics that, aside from perhaps some unfortunate old-fashioned words being used, totally stand up as very good films and excellent comedies. So, like, for example, Clueless. Like, Clueless is always going to be a classic.
Yeah.
Absolute classic.
And is that because it's based on something even more classic than itself?
Well, Emma. But, almost everything in the 90s was based on something else. 10 Things was Taming of the Shrew. Cruel Intentions was Dangerous Liaisons. Like, we were all getting an education in the way that we were getting an education.
Yes. In a roundabout kind of way. Here, have some Shakespeare, but not really. And then when you did have some real Shakespeare, it was like fucking Romeo and Juliet, Baz Luhrmann, fucking 90s as shit.
Oh my God. Romeo and Juliet was one of my favourite films as a little film nerd for years.
Yeah.
Oh, loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
I remember
And then
having
you've
an
got,
argument
obviously-
about it with my
About?
with my Shakespeare lecturer at uni. So I studied performing arts. My second year lecturer was all about Shakespeare, and he was like, "It's not really Shakespeare. It's not." And I was like, "No, it's better than Shakespeare, Michael, because it's actually been through an editor."
Rob in the chat is talking about some other 90s classics from Kevin Smith, Clerks, Chasing Amy, Mallrats, great films. So maybe I can understand why there is a little bit of interest in some of the pop culture that came out of the 90s. What is interesting is which ones are being rebooted and to what quality levels, because I will admit to being very into some of these reboots.
Oh, okay.
Very into some of these reboots.
So as in to the point where you're watching them on a week-to-week basis?
I may have accidentally watched all of the reboot of Party of Five in the last 2 days.
Oh my God.
Slipped and
Look,
fell into a Party of Five.
I wasn't even sure I had seen any of like the stuff that was on your list, Pete, until I looked at it and I'm like, oh yeah, I never thought of that. One of them being Roswell, New Mexico. I remember the original TV series Roswell, but didn't realize that it was a reboot of that. I just thought it had a similar name. I never watched the original, but it was some tasty CW trash, I have to say. I enjoyed it.
Love it. Yes, some tasty CW trash. That's one of the ones I've really got into.
Yeah.
Well, I love the original, which was kind of like, okay, we've got this extraordinarily successful show, The X-Files. So could we make it younger and sexier, please? And then they also did not a reboot. They attempted The X-Files and didn't do it younger and sexier.
But that was with the same cast, wasn't it? So here's what I've learned in my research is that there are reboots, and then there are legacy sequels. So Will and Grace coming back 20 years later, legacy sequel. Fuller House, legacy sequel. What's the other TV show that's recently rebooted itself? Oh no, that's a reboot.
That's a reboot. So when you say legacy sequel, this is something that actually continues on with the original
Continues
casting.
the same timeline.
So I guess Saved by the Bell, the new generation.
Oh God, I haven't even looked at that. But I didn't used to watch.
That's been
Saved by the
rebooted
Bell.
twice.
Oh my God.
And I mean, my interest in this stuff tends to kind of sit in children's TV sort of viewing a little bit more. I don't know why, but when it was like Kids of Degrassi Street and Degrassi Junior High in the 90s was totally my fucking jam. Love that shit. And then they did Degrassi The Next Generation.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, right. But yeah, I when it is a continuation and original characters show back up again as themselves are older or whatever, that's what we consider a legacy sequel.
That's a legacy sequel. So Jurassic World is apparently a legacy sequel of Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
but I've put all of these things on my reboot list because it's bringing something back that is from, and I've tried to focus just on the last 10 years because there have been like a lot of earlier reboots of 90s things as well. It just seems that we're getting volume now that we weren't getting before, and it's piqued my interest. So let's talk about Roswell though, because we just touched on it, and we may as well do like a bit of a dive into Roswell because I really liked the original Roswell series, obviously, because sci-fi and teen drama. What's not to like? If you look at the cast for that, it was a jumping off point for some people that we got to know fairly well in pop culture later. So Katherine Heigl is in the original Roswell. Colin Hanks is in the original Roswell. Yep, playing one of the main characters. And I had a big crush on the main character, Max Evans, played by Jason Behr. I actually don't know what he's gone on to do. Oh, he's Zor-El in Supergirl.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
and actually comes back in Roswell, New Mexico as a different character. So,
sorry. Dion has also pointed out if they're putting T in the chat for a trailer. So if you want a trailer,
okay. So do we have the Roswell trailers? I actually, yes, we do. We do have the Roswell. So I pulled the original Roswell trailer and the Roswell, New Mexico trailer as a bit of a comparison, because the thing that I like about this reboot, and I think what makes a reboot worthwhile is when you change shit up. Like, there's no point making the exact same show, but 20 years later. But this reboot is different. It is a reboot. It's not legacy. But the characters are older. It doesn't start off with them in high school. And the cast is much more diverse, which was not hard because the original cast was not diverse at all. But, you know, the diversity really plays into a bit of the plot, and there's a lot in the plot that, you know, plays into, you know, Roswell being a border town and immigration and
so it's about aliens
all of
and
that
illegal
American
aliens.
politics. Which I think gives it kind of enough depth to be like, yeah, you know what, this is worth telling this story again like this. So let's have a look at the two
Which one do you
trailers.
want first, says Dion?
I think, is there a choice? I thought he'd run them together. Original, then the new one, I would think.
Yes, start with the old one, move to the new.
Yeah.
5 days ago, I died. After that, things got really weird.
You have to look at me.
Why me? Why me?
It was you.
What did Max do to you? I need to know the truth.
Thought about telling you 1,000 times.
Help me out here, Max.
Well, I'm not from around here.
Where are you from? Up north.
Don't you realize that everything has changed?
You did something to her. I need to know what it was.
What am I doing?
When you healed me, you risked all of us getting out.
I'm still me. Now my life is in your hands.
Every small town has a story.
Liz.
Max. It's been a long time.
10 years.
Roswell was a sleepy cowboy settlement in post-war America until one day, something extraordinary happened.
You already know the legend. We think these are what kept us safe during the crash.
The crash?
1947 UFO crash.
I know you think you're safe, but you're not. Aliens have already ruined your life.
I am married to someone who can't ever know who I am, and that kills me.
This is probably a bad idea.
I thought we were ignoring that in favor of the whole sex thing.
You can't ever be with Liz Orteco. Because even if she finds out what we are, there are things you can't ever tell her.
Max trusts Liz. But if he's wrong, you will get inside of her head and erase it.
Everything I've ever done has been to protect Isabel and you!
Everything you've ever done has been to protect yourself!
After high school, you would have followed me.
Anywhere.
What are you, Max?
Liz. No. You asked me what I am? I'm just a guy from Roswell.
And a good removal of a shirt there halfway through. So, you know.
I mean, it is what it is.
It is the trash that it is.
Okay, so what I like about this reboot is that it manages to add layers that were not in the original. And one of my favorite layers that it has added, and you guys know I love a ship, but there is a
What about a
bi-poly
spaceship?
I mean, spaceships I can take or leave, but
Right. But what if
a
it's a
trashy
ship with anyway?
trashy CW, YA ship is great. So this takes a couple of the characters that we know and love from the original series and completely flips all of their relationships on its head. And like there are threesomes going on at one point, and it's fantastic. Drama. It's a really good, delicious trash watch. Like it. Would recommend. Not mad that they did this.
Okay. So in terms of how long did the original go for? Like Roswell? Because I always find that there's that thing of going, okay, you can reboot a thing, but if it outstays or outlives the thing that it is based on, do you start kind of getting into like trying to either break new ground or run out of ideas?
They've already surpassed where the plot went in the original, and part of the reason they could do that is starting them as adults rather than teens in high school. It gave them a lot more breadth, both in terms of the relationships between the characters and what they could do with the characters. And I believe the original only had two seasons, if that. Was there two seasons of the original Roswell?
The chat will tell us.
Tell us in the chat something that I didn't think to properly research before.
That's okay. I'm asking difficult questions.
Yeah, you Google it, Quinny.
I can't. My mouse has died.
Oh no!
Like it's just.
You have to feed it.
Yeah, it does explain why it's been jumping all over the place for the last 3 days.
So that's one I'm not mad about. I'm into it.
Yeah, look, I haven't even seen the original, but I like the new one.
You should see the original, Jill. The original's worth a watch as well.
So could you?
Is.
Because there are a lot of people in the chat saying I've never seen the original, have no idea what it is. Should they maybe watch the pilot, watch the first episode or something like that, and then go, okay, let's have a look at this new one? Because I love a good compare and contrast.
You've got to watch it through that this is 20 years old glass, though. Like, give it a chance. And remember when I first watched it, I was how old? 15? 16 maybe?
Okay.
Just doing some quick maths there.
You're 5, Pete.
And it really is like they're all in high school. It's a teen. The original is a teen show. I still think the audience for the remake is young adult.
Yes.
But I love that shit. So
definitely.
That's me.
But then again, I think like young adult today is perhaps a different market than back then. Like teen drama back in the 90s, was very much aimed at the tween to teen market of like 12 to 16, 17. Whereas young adult now, I think, kind of goes right up into your mid-30s. Like back in the 90s, which is...
we would like it to.
I think the market does.
We are young people.
We are young people, but like if you look at back in the 90s, the shows that were aimed at the middle-aged crowd, the 30-ish kind of, were things like 30-something, or they were. That's
true.
They were pitching older, whereas now, they're still aiming things like The Flash and stuff like that at our age. So I feel like TV is kind of aging with us in some weird way. I don't know.
I also feel like that's probably partly to do with superhero and comics genre becoming much more mainstream
This is true.
They were when you were a kid, and now they're aiming it at everyone because money.
Yeah. It's true.
We've got in the Predator in the chat is talking about the Charmed reboot, and that is one that I have not been able to get into. I gave it a bash, but that has gone the opposite way. The original Charmed was grown adult women, and the reboot is young teenage women. From memory, I've probably watched maybe almost a season of it before I kind of just stopped going back. I don't know.
Of the new one?
Of the new one, yeah.
Right.
Obviously, I watched all of the old one. Charmed was great.
So the characters in that would have been in their early 20s when the show started. It was sort of aimed at them being early 20s-ish.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching Charmed and it being on whatever night it was on. And it was always one of those ones that for some reason, like I would watch, Buffy, I'd watch everything else, but for some reason Charmed never grabbed me. And I don't know why.
I never got into Charmed. I was really hit and miss with stuff in the 90s. Like it's kind of strange. Like talking about all the stuff that we are tonight, I could say, nope. Oh yeah. No. I had very strange taste.
Maybe it's because I was consuming more of the mainstream pop culture, being a little television file.
And all that kind of stuff in the 90s. I absolutely despised it.
Oh my God, I loved it.
Yeah.
You were like, yeah, give me more of that lovely love.
So Empire Records, Jill.
Oh.
Is that like a yes or a no? See, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. Of all time.
Oh, wow.
No, Jill's just lost all respect for me.
Coming of age things I just did not watch. I was extremely cynical and jaded, and I didn't want to do anything my friends were doing.
So what were you into in the 90s, Jill?
I'm having trouble remembering.
The Craft, because there's been a reboot of The Craft, or maybe that's a legacy sequel. I think that's in the same universe.
That was meant to be a legacy
sequel.
Well,
it's called Craft Legacy, so I think the clue's in the title. I think I watched The Craft. I have tried to block out a lot of my high school years.
Oh no!
It was bad.
Wow.
Has anyone in the chat watched the reboot of The Craft? Because I watched the trailer and I couldn't bring myself to watch it. It just didn't look. It did not. Look
I re-engaged with the original movie. I don't know. It showed up on a Plex or something recently, and I watched it. And I was like, oh man, this isn't as horrific as I remember it being. Like I remember it being more horror kind of inflected than it was. But then I kind of watched it and I was like, oh, okay, it's a little more teeny and not as goth as I thought it was either. It was a lot more mainstream than my memory of it was. But it still was quite enjoyable. And then I saw the trailer for the Craft Legacy and I was just like, oh shit, no. I felt really bad about it, but I was like, oh no, I think that looks terrible.
Yeah, I didn't bother with that. I haven't bothered with that. I haven't bothered with the new Space Jam movie. Space Jam, A New Legacy.
Enough.
Oh.
Yep. Legacy.
Legacy again. So much legacy.
I mean, let's go down the list. We have talked previously in detail about the recent Mortal Kombat film. But then, there's always an argument as well about whether it's really a reboot if the 90s was already based on pre-existing material. So, for example, Sabrina. I would argue that Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is a reboot of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, even though it's based on an existing character, because I think a lot of the character setup came from the TV show, like her parents being half witch and that kind of thing. I read that kind of part of Sabrina started in the TV show. And that is one that I will say the remake is significantly better than the original.
Okay.
Really?
Quality-wise, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, I loved it, but it was not a good show.
Yes, it was.
Come on, it was.
It was so good.
I loved Salem. I loved Salem more than anything in the world.
I loved the aunts. They were great. I thought the Sabrina and Harvey thing was amazing. I have vivid memories of the weird I'm going to bake a boyfriend episode.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I'd forgotten about that. Oh my God.
Yes.
I
have seen all of Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and each season gets incredibly worse. It just goes down.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The final
hadn't
season
heard
was
that.
just appalling.
I have to admit, I kind of got bored and stopped watching halfway through the final season. Yes. But it was a big budget, high-end television show.
Yeah.
Whereas Sabrina the Teenage Witch was a studio comedy.
Cheap city sitcom.
It was
yeah.
a sitcom, yeah.
That had a badly animated cat.
For it. Oh, I know. The puppet cat was stupid, but it was great at the same time. Like, you knew how hokey it was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you respected it for it.
Yes, exactly.
Like, I thought it was interesting because to me that felt like not necessarily a reboot, but Sabrina the Teenage Witch to me felt like a kind of reinterpretation of Bewitched. You know, it was like, okay, well, let's do the same sort of thing as Bewitched did in the 60s, but we'll do it in the 90s and, you know, we'll base it off an existing comic book. So, I mean, but then there was that Bewitched fucking movie with Nicole Kidman, and the less said about that, the better.
Which I didn't put on the list because it's just a little bit older than the period that we're looking at. I would say maybe one thing that I have done with a lot of these things that I've watched is, as I've kind of grown up, I've forgotten how many of these things were just flat comedies and I maybe took them too seriously as a kid. So you're like, I'm like, Sabrina was terrible. You're like, no, it's a genius comedy. Yeah. And I think that's happened to me with She's All That, because I always loved that movie, but I rewatched it after I watched He's All That and realized that it is a genius comedy. Like, it's a genuinely good and very funny film. He's All That. Okay. Not so much.
So admittedly, I never watched She's All That when I was of that age when it came out. To me, the whole let's make over a girl for a bet thing just did not fly with me. So for the first time in my life, I watched it today. And
oh, really?
Yes. And I really liked it. I really liked it. Like, I mean, I knew what the trope was, and it's been done to death and parodied. Like, I mean, Not Another Teen Movie is like the most obvious one, but it has been done to death in many other things. But then I watched He's All That straight after.
I mean, you did it in the right order at least.
Yeah. So, like, I started the movie and I'm like, oh, maybe it's not going to be that bad. But then it kept going. I'm like, yeah, this is bad. This is bad. So I don't know what it was about the dynamic, but it just did not work in the opposite, like in the gender swap for me.
I think what's happened is that they've forgotten, even though it's the same writer, that She's All That was a rom-com, not a serious romance film. Yeah. And I feel like they've tried to do too much. Like, there was no message in She's All That other than maybe, like, don't be a dick. But they've put this kind of message, this kind of Gen Z focused message about, you know, not paying attention to followers and all of that kind of thing. And I'm like, oh no, you've tried to do too much. This is preachy and not funny.
Entirely. Like, She's All That is very much about, like, you know, don't judge a book by its cover. These popular kids, if they took the time to get to know, like, the social outcasts, they'd actually discover that, you know, everyone's just a human being and trying to get through high school.
Everyone's got shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the exact phrase at the end of Pygmalion and and My Fair Lady.
Everyone's got shit.
I've grown accustomed to her face. Everyone's got shit.
Yeah. And I mean, like, Lainey didn't have any idea about the stuff that Zach was going through with, like, the pressure from his dad and stuff like that. And I think it's a very much, you know, Tale of Two Cities kind of thing. But He's All That, it just, like, completely blasted past any of those kind of, hey, let's get kids, you know, maybe stop the bullying kind of thing going on. And it just went straight to, oh, your Instagram follow account is not everything. I'm like,
yeah.
Is that what kids today do need to hear?
No.
Fuck, I sound old. Jesus Christ.
I mean, okay,
Kill
here's
me
the
now.
other thing. They've cast it with a TikTok star who's not got any acting experience, who I've since learned is also a Trump supporter. So there's that.
Oh, God.
Oh.
So she, you know.
And the guy from Cobra Kai.
And the guy from Cobra Kai, who's great. Like, I really like him.
He's not by any measure an ugly person. And it doesn't matter
He's
bad.
Neither is Rachel Lee Cook.
He is the spiritual successor to fucking Jonathan Brandis.
I mean, the thing is, when you take that comedy element out of it, that's when it becomes ridiculous. Hey, Dion, do we have the makeover reveal clips from both films there? Yes,
we do.
Can we roll them? Can we do a direct comparison of the most famous scene from this movie and then their attempt in the remake?
Then can also we run that clip from My Fair Lady where they did no?
I didn't pull that. Sorry, Quinn.
Okay. Sorry.
Margarita.
Yeah. Gentlemen, may I present the new, not improved, but different, Laney Boggs. Laney! Laney Boggs, get your cute butt down here!
Swing, swing, swing the spinning step. You wear those shoes and I will wear that dress. Oh, kiss me beneath the milky twilight. Lead me out on the moonlit floor. Lift your open head.
You ready?
Yeah. Drive safely.
You've done this before?
Literally thousands of times.
Really? You shaved the guy's face?
Sorry, can't hear you.
I love all the ways that I feel so much. I get carried away. I love to love. I just wanna stay and get carried away.
Wow, you are good. How do you feel?
Like I just lost Dancing with the Stars.
Well, if I didn't know any better and you weren't my brother, I'd say you looked pretty hot. Right, Paget?
Yeah, sure.
Oh.
I mean, you've got a classic scene, like classic moment in modern cinema.
The music.
I would say.
Yeah.
The fucking music.
Oh my God.
And
then you've got like
between the music in the two is very significant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they really missed the mark. The interesting thing, somebody was saying last night during our painting chat with Beck that it was rumoured that M. Night Shyamalan did a polish on the She's All That script. And I read up a little bit more about that.
It was the twist.
So
she was hot all along.
The funny thing about this is that it's the same writer for both films, is the main writer. But I read up a little bit more about the M. Night Shyamalan thing, and apparently the producer is on record of saying that M. Night Shyamalan did do a polish of the script that made all of the characters much deeper and really gave it a bit more depth.
And you're like, holy shit. What
I'm just
was it
wondering
like before?
if the original She's All That script might have been maybe more similar to the He's All That movie that we got. I don't know. Just speculating. Or maybe the writer, when he was, a Gen X writing for a 90s audience, was a little bit closer to being in touch with his audience than writing for a Zoomer audience. I don't know.
I have to say, though, 17-year-old me really missed the boat on Freddie Prinze Jr.
How?
I was not into him when I was younger.
Oh,
but
my God.
now I'm like, oh, the eyelashes. He's gorgeous. I'm like,
The hilarious shot from
with him, like, damn.
That hilarious shot from the beginning where he like sees a photo of himself and then turns around and you see him for the first time. In fact, that entire first sequence in the school
the whole
is
thing
fantastic.
off and did it in Not a Teen Movie with Chris. Like, that's where that whole thing came from as well.
And he saw that as just missing all of those kind of cinematic elements of this is life as a teenager. You know,
it takes
here you
itself
are
a
in the
little
high
bit
school
too
world.
seriously, I think.
Way too seriously.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the sense of fun or doesn't have the sense of humor?
No,
It tries.
fun or humor at all.
It tries. There's a
will
poop
admit.
throwing moment, but it didn't land for me.
Like I looked at the trailer for it at the start there and I was like, okay, right. And, you know, yes, it's all about followers and TikTok and Facebook and yada, yada, yada. No, not even Facebook. Fuck that.
I did ask a Zoomer daughter of a colleague of mine what she thought of it. And I said, have you watched She's All That? And she was like, oh, is that the one with Addison Rae in it? So she hasn't watched it. But it's interesting that her only connection to knowing what it was the TikTok star that stars in it. So maybe it will hit differently with, maybe I'm just not reading the audience right and I'm being a bit of a bitch.
I don't know. Maybe we should make a movie about that. About maybe, you know, us fucking, what are we, Gen Xers?
You
I don't
are.
know what we are.
I don't know what we are anymore.
We're elder millennials, Jill.
Yeah.
We need to Gen X.
Hey, when does Gen X start?
Geriatric millennials is something
Ow,
I've read
ow.
recently.
Oh, my heart. No, literally my heart. Oh, God.
You know you're Gen X, Quinny.
Yeah. I've never been clear on when Gen X ends or starts. Because depending, you know, some days apparently I'm still a fucking millennial. I'm not. But
You're not.
No,
You're not.
In no way, shape, or form am I a millennial. But you know, I'm never sure where Gen X starts and what Gen Y is. What's
Well,
a
I
fucking
used to think I was Gen Y, but apparently not. anymore.
Millennial is Gen Y. You're like super late Gen X and we're you're super, late Gen X, so we're super early Gen Y.
right?
We're basically the same.
We are essentially.
There's 5 years difference between us. Like, it's not that much.
Yeah, which is, and I'm fine with that. Yeah, look, I looked at that trailer and I was kind of like, okay, so we're trying to do, and I look at it in comparison to something like 10 Things I Hate About You, you know, which is a film that really caught the zeitgeist at the time and was fucking, you know, like it. People loved it. People fell in love with it. It made stars out of people, and it really brought people to the idea that teen drama was sexy and cool and funny and all that stuff, especially when you base it off a bit of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering, can we do that in the modern context? If you're talking about TikTok, if you're talking about followers and Instagram and shit like that.
I feel like you can. I feel like these stories, particularly these ones that are based on other, you know, things, they're successful because the spine of the story is universal and timeless, and I think that you could absolutely make them for the iPhone generation, in the way that in the way that they did for us in the 90s. You know, it needs a bit of knowledge of the generation and what they care about, and a bit of kind of cleverness to do that. Although I do think 10 Things had a television remake about 10 years ago that I have not watched because I think it's sacrilege, and apparently it wasn't very good.
Colour me shocked.
10 Things is a terrific classic.
It is.
It's a wonderful, wonderful film.
I'm not that into, you know, the teen movie sort of stuff, but 10 Things is one of those ones that stops me cold, and I'm like, yeah, fucking mint film.
Let's talk about Missy's bringing up that she likes that these reboots have that diversity element to it, which is something that I like about them, which brings me to Party of Five, which, like I said, it has one season. I don't know if it ever got another. But you guys remember Party of Five, right? very dramatic story about a
Campbell,
very
right?
white family who lost their parents, and there are 5 kids, and then they have to look after themselves. So they've rebooted Party of 5, but the family is Mexican American, and their parents don't die; they get deported.
Oh wow!
Oh,
Yeah, and the eldest is a DACA kid, and the rest are citizens, and he's kind of got to look after them. And it took me an episode or 2, but then I just got super into it because I'm like, what a relevant way to look at and reboot that story. It's not the best series ever, but I might have fallen down a 10-episode hole in the last 2 weeks.
This lockdown has been good for you, hasn't it? Been a lot of TV, and I appreciate it.
I mean, I should start sleeping, but whatever. TV is good too. TV. Oh, we've got a raid coming in.
Hey,
cool.
Thank you to the Bedroom Gamer.
We are talking about reboots of 90s television and movies.
Yeah. That's why we're dressed like this. We don't look like this.
We don't normally dress this way.
Butterfly clips.
Just in case you think you've, teleported yourself into some weird Twilight Zone.
Yeah. What happened? Well, I was doing that, and then these people with butterfly clips, and that guy who was dressed like he's in the 80s, and though he thinks it's the 90s. Yeah.
So we were just talking about the Party of 5 reboot that I watched 10 episodes of in 2 days. Oops.
Very healthy.
I've got to say, maybe one of the reasons it took me a little bit to get into it is because the main thing I remember getting attached to about Party of 5 when I was 13 or something, when it first came out, was the cute boys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who were supposedly like 17 and 24, but the actors were actually 26 and 28.
Yeah, they're never that age.
Yeah. Whereas now that I'm in my middling to more than that 30s, characters that are playing 17 and 24 don't really do it for me anymore.
But they're still good. Surely.
Oh, tattoo necklaces. They have also come back. Seriously. All of the things.
Oh, yes they have. Yeah.
Kids these days. Absolutely. What else have we got on the list? Dion, there's one that's coming up that I don't know how you guys feel about it. Did you guys used to watch The Wonder Years? I mean, I know everyone knows The Wonder Years, but it was early 90s and late 80s. And we used to sit down and watch it as a family.
I do remember seeing it.
Yeah.
I love The Wonder Years. Had massive crush on Winnie.
That completely makes sense. Yeah. I think I was a little bit too young for crushes when I was watching The Wonder Years because it was like early 90s. But I do remember this one episode where like one of the characters, I think maybe Kevin, gets drunk, and I was mortified that like, oh my God, that's like such a naughty thing to do. I was mortified that this character had been so naughty. Did this convo spark because of Seinfeld coming to Netflix? No, it sparked because of He's All That on Netflix. And we would not recommend, but we would recommend that you go back and watch She's All That, which is a timeless classic. I didn't realize Seinfeld was coming to Netflix. Is that like as a reboot, or are they just bringing the episodes in?
Seinfeld.
Yeah, no, I think they're leaving that one where it stands.
If somebody was going to reboot Seinfeld, I think I would burn the world down. Like,
no.
I'm like, stop it. This is not a joke.
See,
Rob remembers the episode that upset me of The Wonder Years.
I just like there was a trailer that was released recently for the reboot of The Wonder Years, which is interesting that where they've chosen to set it. So the Wonder Years being a show made in the 90s that was set in the 60s, if memory serves.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this one being
late 80s and early 90s, set in the 60s.
Yeah. And this one being a show made in 2021 that is set in the 60s again. I was like,
and I think that is a brilliant, brilliant choice. Dion, do we have the Wonder Years trailer? It's happening.
Apparently.
Would you stand up and walk out on me?
Music.
Lend me your
very loud, Dion.
Sing you a song. I will
Try not to sing out of key. Yes. Yeah, sorry, that scared the shit out of me. It was very loud. And now we just need a narration of somebody.
An inner monologue.
So hang on, we've got the music going, but I don't think that the trailer is actually playing on the Twitch. I think it's just our heads.
Yes. Oh no, I know it is us because that's Dion just playing the music off his.
Oh, I thought he'd started to play the trailer.
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
no.
Sorry, that was confusing.
It was.
We do have the trailer. Maybe we should drop it into
we
the
should.
trailer.
And when I come back to it, remind me to talk about Friends. The show, not the.
I think Dion doesn't know that we have the trailer.
Oh, I thought we had the trailer, but you know what? Maybe we don't have the trailer, and that's fine. We can just move on.
Okay. I thought that was one of the ones that we had too, but you know what? I've been wrong before.
But you know what? It's fine. The thing about the trailer is that they dropped a new trailer like 2 days ago. So you can easily go and find the trailer. And I think
Margarita.
it Don.
Yeah.
No, is it happening? No, this is Kiss Me again. What's going on?
Gentlemen.
No, this is.
Tell you what to start doing.
There we go.
Don't be scared.
I'm not scared. Hey, stop it! Hey, say you're sorry.
Man, she's tough.
I know. I dig it.
It's weird to grow up in a time when your mom and dad have to give you the police talk, or when a presidential election creates a racial divide. But it was 1968. The year I turned 12. The age of locker rooms, bullies, and girls.
My mom's making me wear pantyhose. Yuck. Yeah. Yuck.
12 was the age I was gonna figure out what my bag was. I'd never be as popular as my sister, as smart as my mom, or as bad as my dad.
Be cool. What kind of music professor would I be if my daughter didn't go to college? Bad enough my son doesn't have rhythm.
Hey!
Yet. My son doesn't have rhythm yet.
Front of the box, watch the fastball.
Back of the box, watch the curve.
If you got a problem with the way I coach, say so. But you stick to the do-re-mis, and I stick to the 1, 2, 3.
That doesn't even make sense. He just rhymed.
Some people didn't feel like we needed to mix black people with white people. I didn't understand all that.
What's happening, Chad? How's it going, Quentin?
Black Jesus, you're trying too hard.
But I decided what my bag would be. The Great Uniter.
Think about how blessed it'd be to have our teams play each other.
Why would you want to play with a bunch of white boys?
Why does that matter? How do you know if you don't try? Isn't that what you're always telling me?
What would you do if
I feel different everywhere I go. When I'm with Corey and Brad, we all feel different. I finally get to feel the same as everybody else.
Oh, baby,
It's the little things that you remember all your life. Your first hit, your first kiss, the first time your dad lets you know that he sees you. Well, I still hadn't had the other two, but boy, did that third one feel good.
I mean, I would watch that just for Don Cheadle, but I think that looks really good.
I like it.
I'm kind of into that. I think that it's an interesting and good choice to do this remake and set it in the same period, because I think that it's going to highlight how much hasn't changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is interesting, but that song, my God,
yeah,
that song.
So
the nostalgia.
You watched the original one with your family every week.
Yeah, we used to do that. We used to watch, the Wonder Years. Another one we used to all watch together with. Do you remember Picket Fences?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow,
yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay, so there's this scene in Picket Fences that if you guys have watched it, that you probably will remember, where they've set up like a surprise party for one of the characters, and he walks into a dark room and he doesn't know everyone's hiding and just like, let's rip. And my mum possibly nearly died laughing. I remember that specific scene because of the reaction from the entire family. It used to be, do you remember like turning up in the lounge room at a particular time with the family to watch a thing?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, you know, I've got to like finish dinner because the Wonder Years or Picket Fences or ER is coming on at 8:30.
Appointment TV.
Yes.
What? And I remember having that argument or that thing of being, you know, out shopping with my mum or something like that, and being really jonesing to go home because there was something on that at night that you wanted to get home for, and because you probably only had one or two TVs in the house, everybody watched the same thing, and there was always the negotiation. I'm going to watch this, but then I'm watching the thing. Or, you know.
Yes, or you watch, I'll watch mine and you can tape yours on the VHS tape recorder. And then God help you, you tape over something before somebody's watched it.
Oh, yeah.
Because then it's gone.
Yeah.
Like, this is what like kids these days don't understand. If you missed your show, you missed your show.
Yeah.
Like, it could be years before they do a rerun of that show. This was before even, like, you know, eventually you could buy the VHS tapes. This is like, like, there was a time where, like, if you missed an episode of Friends, you never saw that episode of Friends. You just had to move on with your life.
Yeah. Well,
how did we live?
I was so good at programming a VCR. I could probably
yep.
be on the bomb squad. Like, I was that good.
You knew how the two buttons at once and the thing.
Yeah.
You remember when they had
the lights to flash and go scroll for the time 7.
Yeah. Do you remember when they had the things in the newspaper that had like a little code? You could put them into your VCR and it would start the VCR at a certain time. That was like fucking
only
magic.
If you had one of those text TVs, teletext or something, and it had a code number. That
a G code, that's the one.
Oh my god, that was cutting edge in the 90s.
Yeah. It was a
G code.
Yeah, but you had to have like the specific technology that went with it.
So I briefly mentioned in the chat, and what started in the 90s that continued on into the early noughties was the thing I've done a rewatch of lately, is the entirety of Friends. And this is a show that I do not want them to do a remake of or a reboot of, but at the same time, I was like, holy shit. Like, it was fascinating that a show could get so big.
Yeah.
Like,
I watched the reunion because, I mean,
yeah, that's what got me into watching
this.
If
a rerun of Friends is on, I don't necessarily turn it off. Like, it was such a staple of growing up. Like, I probably have seen every episode. But in retrospect, a lot of it is very problematic.
Oh, it is not like it doesn't hold up.
No, it hasn't aged well. But I don't.
It's aged astonishingly badly in some cases, and there are characters. Like, oh, sorry, you go.
No, oh, well, yeah, you can continue after I say this little bit. But
Do
like,
the
I
thing.
think with long-running sitcoms like that, it's kind of impossible task to reboot it.
Yeah, absolutely. As Dion put in the chat of Ross is a psychopath. Like,
he's a gaslighting piece of shit.
Yeah, it is. There is so much fat shaming, so much homophobia.
Oh my god, the fat phobia is ridiculous. The transphobia
is awful. Like, and it is this bizarre thing. And like, you know, looking at you look at Chandler, who is constantly, you know, either being homophobic or
really needed to see a therapist.
He really did.
So many self-esteem issues that he took out and projected on other people.
Yeah. But also then you look at it and you go, wow, God, Ross's sister, fuck, I can't even think of it. Monica is not mentally well.
She's neurotic.
Yeah, she is. None of them are particularly healthy. I think that Phoebe is probably the most healthy out of all of them.
Yep.
And I love the way that through a modern lens, you look at Phoebe and go, you've seen some shit and done some shit, and you have lived a life and come out of it
The
pretty
quirky
fucking good.
outcast is the only mentally stable one. Who knew?
Yeah, yeah. And it's astonishing. But yeah, through a modern lens, and I was watching it thinking, how would you reboot that these days? Like, could you do it? Because there hasn't been, to my mind, anything that has really kind of captured that same feeling. I mean, How I Met Your Mother, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably another one.
But I
also deeply problematic.
Yeah. Yeah. But that, like, I was looking at it going, could you reboot it now? Could you tell a story of 6 people, you know?
There are a lot of comedy stories of 6 people, or the equivalent. I mean, Happy Endings is fantastic if you want to kind of visit something else like that. New Girl is very similar in vibe. Like, I feel like it has kind of been, done and done again. And I'll always watch a new one if the characters are good and the script is
but have we
good.
seen like live studio audience sitcom television lately?
That has, no.
Not for a while.
Because that's the big defining thing about Friends and Seinfeld is that they were, on sets in front of audiences.
Yeah. Adsky says Mrs. Brown's Boys, but I've not actually watched any of that.
No, I've not watched that.
And also that's British, if memory serves, which I think there is a bigger history in Britain of live studio sitcom stuff.
Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, Big Bang. I just can't think of any good shows that are done in front of a live studio audience.
Yeah, we're talking about good shows, guys.
And we'll probably touch on this a little bit more, Jill, in a few weeks when we look at Kevin Can Go and Fuck Himself, because there is definitely elements of those genres in there.
Guys.
But do you have anything to say, Jill, about Walker, Texas Ranger?
Wow.
Oh my God. I forgot we were going to talk about Walker.
Now, I have not watched an episode of any Walker, original or otherwise, so I can't help you out.
Oh my God. Okay. So like Chuck Norris Walker, Texas Ranger is pretty badass. Like
you put the word ass in there.
terrible.
Okay.
It's terrible TV, but it's so good. Whereas you take the new version just called Walker, which is pretty much based off the premise of the original show, starring Jared Padalecki from Supernatural. And it's a CW show, so we know already it's going to be trash TV, but it has no charm.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh.
No, Jared. No.
I know. It's so questionable of Jared because, like, I mean, I wouldn't say he's a terrible actor, but in this show, he very much is. The pilot episode, I'm not sure if I watched a second one, but the pilot episode was very all over the place. Just kind of didn't make sense, and it felt like they were trying to set up a very convenient fridging of his wife to continue the story for him. That just didn't make any sense. And of course, it then turns into, oh, well, my only purpose in life is to find out who killed my wife. No spinning back kicks, like no kung fu. I'm like,
and what is even the point?
What is even the point? Exactly.
Does he have a grizzled beard?
No, he's got designer stubble. The only diversity in the casting is I don't even know what you call it, like the captain of the sheriff, whatever's.
Right.
They're rangers. They're not police.
Yeah.
I guess like the head sheriff or whatever is black. His partner is Latina. Yeah. The whole other family is white. They made his brother gay. That is just about the diversity that we get in the show.
Does it feel tokenistic? Like if you've got a black captain and a Latino friend and a gay thing,
No.
does it feel natural for them to be
the
there?
gay brother move, definitely. Yeah.
Right.
But everything else is just like, it's such a waste of time. I don't, I don't know anybody that would want to willingly watch it. Like my mum was like, "Oh my god, oh Jared's gonna be in a new show. Oh, it's Walker Texas Ranger's gonna be amazing." And I'm like, "Mum, I watched the first episode. It's so bad." I'm like, "Don't watch it." She was disappointed.
A couple of
So
people
sad.
in the chat have brought up MacGyver and Magnum PI.
Oh my god, yeah, I did try to watch the new MacGyver. That was also
Me too.
terrible.
Yeah, I was because I fucking loved the original MacGyver.
Yes,
it was so good.
So good.
You know,
Like,
it was
you
bad, but
can't-
it was
you
so
can't do a
good.
sexy reboot. Not when Richard Dean Anderson is still a sexy man.
But also, I didn't find new MacGyver to be anything like as charming or or funny or
It had a lot of pieces missing.
It reminded
Yeah.
me a lot of like the Point Break reboot where they just tried to like sex up the star and like just had none of the other pizzazz that was there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dion in the chat is like Richard Dean Anderson sexy. I'm pretty sure people are about to fucking jump through the internet and punch him. And I don't blame them.
Yeah, I mean, Mum and I didn't go from MacGyver into Stargate for nothing.
Even the later series of Stargate where he was old Captain,
Silver
old Jack.
Fox, Jack O'Neill, yeah.
Yeah, love that. I mean, there are so many sort of returns to the well, and I mean, the list that Peter put together, we have barely even scratched. Like, there's a few that are upcoming. There's one I'm actually really excited about, just because I love seeing an underdog win in an interesting way. So the reboot of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that short film or teaser trailer or whatever that they did last year, that looks
Yeah.
fantastic.
and what I love about it is that it looks fantastic, and I guarantee you everybody looked at that and went, "Fuck, that's a good idea." And then the person that looked at it and went, "Fuck, that's a good idea," was Will Smith,
Yeah.
and went, "I'm going to make it. I'm going to give
Yeah.
you the money that you need. I'm going to make this show." And I was like, shit, that's amazing. And I love that. I love that somebody who has a great idea and sees something in a show like that. Because, I mean, really? Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reboot?
Yeah,
That
but
seems
this
like
one
a
is
bad idea.
gritty, but also has like that LA glossy look to it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm down for this.
I love it because it looks like it's got something to say too.
Yeah.
You know, it's talking to the idea of a poor kid who's sent to live with his rich relatives in the wrong end of town, which we think is interesting and stuff, but now is actually a death sentence in some cases for black kids who are put to the wrong part of the city. Like that's especially with Black Lives Matter and everything like that. There's something to be said there, and I am so fucking pumped to check that out. I think that's going to be awesome.
A trailer for something that was in Pete's document called Doogie Kamealoha. And I'm like, I am so keen to watch that. I am all about like the young adult stuff on Disney Plus. I love High School Musical, the musical, the series. I love Victor. So this is going to be my new Saturday morning treat is to watch Doogie Kamealoha. So it's basically like Doogie Howser, except
MD.
Yeah, except it's a young genius, half Hawaiian girl set in Hawaii who is now a doctor at like 15. And they, like as a joke, call her Doogie because, you know, they're like, and it's got, oh my God, Ronnie Chang in it. And he's like, oh, we call her Doogie, you know, like Doogie Howser. And everyone's like, who's Doogie Howser? I was like, come on. I'm like, yes, anything with Ronnie Chang, I'll watch.
I love that they kind of got that little reference in there. Like,
yeah. But that trailer just looks so fun.
and so there's an interesting concept and a question. Can you reboot a thing if you then reference the original?
I don't know.
Like
yes.
Okay.
I believe you can. I believe you can. There were lots of references to She's All That in He's All That.
As in the movie She's All That.
Yes.
Yeah, well, in He's All That, Rachel.
No, they don't like reference the actual movie He's All That, but there's a lot of nods all the way through.
No, I'm literally meaning like if you were watching He's All That and they had a copy of She's All That on the fucking thing, like if you reference the existence of that other thing as being a movie, can you if Doogie Kamehameha is referencing Doogie Howser, which is a TV show, is it technically a reboot?
I think so, because
the concept is still the same.
The concept is still the same.
Yeah.
I think they've just very cleverly just worn it on their sleeve. And I think that's kind of cool. If you look at it, even the spelling is different. They've spelled it Doogie in the new one.
Not
Dougie.
What about Quinny? You've watched the Animaniacs reboot, which I am desperate to watch because I loved Animaniacs.
It's time for Animaniacs. It's so good. That was an interesting one. I've watched 5 or 6 episodes of the new one, and it feels very much like we've just stepped back in, like because it's animated and stuff. Nobody's aged, nothing's changed. It still feels like it could just be the next series of Animaniacs, but of course it is 20-something years later. But what they're referencing and the stuff they're riffing on is new and modern, and they've got very interesting opinions about the world today and stuff like that. I really liked it. But for some reason, after watching a few episodes of it, I was like, I'll come back to that, and haven't. Which is weird because I fucking love the original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with the original.
It is so good. The characters are so lovable, and Pinky and the Brain doing their thing. I don't know. It does a very, very good job of capturing the feel of the original. But I'm not sure whether the humor translates, whether it's slightly too old. I don't know.
But it kind of felt like that in the original too.
God, they've broken Quinny, says Dion.
The comedy was like way over your head as a child, but like I think I was maybe just of the age to understand some of the references.
My favorite joke in that entire thing is we're going to be looking for fingerprints, and Dot is holding up Prince, the singer,
yeah.
and just him looking at the camera going, oh,
yeah.
Just like, wow.
Yep.
So on the animation train, there is a Rugrats reboot coming out, and I'm just going to stick a massive "but why" sticker on that and move on.
We really need an emote for you.
Why? You guys can look up the trailer. It looks a little bit like Nightmare Fuel to me. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't see the point of
animation too.
I don't see the point of rebooting it with the exact same characters and the exact same tone, but just a different style of animation.
Why reboot any Nickelodeon animation in that regard? Like, I mean, 90s Nickelodeon cartoons were a mood, and it's like there's no point rebooting it. Just rerun the show.
Just rerun the show. I love Rugrats, but like,
didn't they do like a legacy sequel for Rocko's Modern Life?
They did.
Recently?
Hey, Heifer.
Heifer. That is, oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was weird.
It's a good impersonation.
Oh, thanks. I watched a bit of that, and it was weird and funny because they are so aware of the fact that they're a reboot. And they kind of reference themselves, and they reference the cartoon.
It was always a very meta show.
Yeah. I actually was watching a great video today about a lot of this, actually. So I was watching a video about SWAT Cats, which is an animated series that turned up on Cartoon Network. It was originally made by Hanna-Barbera, but it was an action thing. And it was really interesting talking about the context of the time that there was a big push to get cartoons out of being violent. And Ted Turner, who owned TNT and Cartoon Network, was one of the people who was pushing for it. So all of these cartoons that had been going through the 80s and early 90s that were, about selling toys and aimed at boys and hyper-masculine and shit like that, suddenly were in 1993 cut off because there was an actual act in government that said, you can't do this shit anymore. Wow. And out of that came all of that Nickelodeon stuff. Oh. So Rocko's Modern Life, Dexter's Laboratory, all of those things, because they were
Real Monsters. That was like one of my favorites.
Oh, I loved Real Monsters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And this whole thing was that whole wave of stuff happened because they were going for goofy comedy, they were going for weird, they were going for fun, but they weren't going for toy sales and they weren't going for violence. And I was like, oh shit, that's cool.
Yeah. Thank you, whoever decided to do that.
Toy Galaxy.
The greatest ABC viewing after school of an afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what there you go. That's what I was watching instead of like all these shitty rom-com movies and Charmed and all that bullshit. I was watching cartoons.
Me too.
I managed to get all of this in, guys. You just weren't trying hard enough to consume media.
You're right, Peter. Sorry.
I watched Our Real Monsters. I watched Rugrats, and I also managed to get in all of my 90s teen rom-coms.
I did also have parents going, go outside, stop watching TV, go and play in the bush.
I mean, I'm nothing if not a high achiever.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Oh, Casper's like, now Super Ted, bring that back. Yeah.
Oh, Super Ted.
Oh my God.
Well, now we're just going down a nostalgia. This is a 90s nostalgia hole that has nothing to do with reboots now.
No, you're right. And also we're into cartoons, and that's my territory. That's Animates with me and Jill. It is. Maybe we could have Jill, Peter come along for an episode.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll talk to you about 90s animations for sure. I was into that shit. Let's have a look at the list to see if I can tell you guys what else is on the list in case anybody has been inspired by this to go and seek out various qualities of reboots of 90s stuff. Twin Peaks got a legacy sequel a few years ago, but I fucking hate David Lynch and I have no interest in any of that. So, that happened and I don't know.
I loved Twin Peaks back in the day, but for some reason couldn't be fucked watching the legacy sequel. And that's weird because I loved it. Go figure.
Maybe there's something to do on the weekend, Queen.
Maybe some things should just be left as they are and where they are.
Yeah.
Some things like, okay, a perfect example of this is Point Break. Point Break is a classic that did not need a reboot unless there was going to be like a significant twist or change in the plot. Why they remade Point Break is beyond me. Beyond me. Like I just don't get it. Space Jam, on the other hand, like I feel like that was just up for grabs. Like I don't like there's anyone sitting there going like Space Jam is a classic, you shouldn't touch it.
No. I love that the chat has now moved on to what Australian TV of the 90s should be rebooted.
Around the Twist, Ocean Girl. Oh my God, you guys.
I would love
Saddle
to see
Club.
A modern take on Australian Round the Twist. That would be really interesting.
What's happening in kids' TV these days? Maybe we're just out of touch. Maybe there's some fantastic Australian kids' TV happening as we speak, but we don't watch ABC Kids. Well, Bluey,
I just don't know
obviously.
anybody that's in that age group in that very early teen age group. Like
You've watched Bluey though, right? Because Bluey is an incredible piece
I
of
was going to
television.
say I only have very young nieces that watch, weird.
I have a lot of love for Bluey just because it's so smart and it's so well made, and I fucking love that it's all made in Brisbane. Like,
hey, we've got Doc Forrest pitching a legacy sequel of Round the Twist now. Maybe we should get in touch with the EPs.
Let's do that. Let's make
Hardball
it.
is good. Hardball is good.
Wiggles cannot die.
Well, I mean, the Wiggles, the right is trying to kill the Wiggles as we speak, Casper. So I don't think that they will succeed, but they're giving it a red hot go.
I believe that Wiggles are very much like a Hydra now. If you cut off one Wiggles head, 3 more appear, and they're more diverse than the last.
I have to
The
say,
Secret Life of Alex Mack, Casper, was one of my favorite childhood television shows.
Yes. Oh my God. Do you remember when she like started a band? Oh, I was obsessed with the song. And I was singing. Oh God, I'm fucking tragic now. I'm just remembering how much of a loser I was. But, oh my God, I wished I was Alex Mack.
You know what? I think the main difference between us and the Generation Z or Zoomers or iPhone generation, whatever you want to call them, is thank God we did not have the means to record everything that we were doing.
Yep.
Like, oh my God, because we were so embarrassing, and I don't understand how kids these days are not. Like,
yeah. But also looking at what 13-year-olds look like today compared to what we look like at 13 is staggering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really quite scary.
But then at the same time, looking at the way that like people are staying at home longer, you know, by like most people I knew by their early 20s would probably moved out. You know, a lot of them out by 18, 19, going to uni, doing whatever. Whereas now there's a whole generation that's still at home, well into their mid-20s. Which
that's because the boomers fucked the economy.
That is correct.
I mean, reasons, obviously.
Absolutely reasons. But I feel like there's this weird thing where we're being told to be grown up younger. Like, you know, you're talking about 13-year-olds that look so adult, but then we're infantilized for longer because we're not moving out. We're not starting families and getting fucking mortgages and shit like that until we're in our 30s or 40s, or later. So yeah, it's a weird thing. Like we've got this hyper extended youth period, and maybe that's why all of this is so popular, because we're just desperate for fucking nostalgia.
Yeah,
we're just so hungry for that time where we felt like we knew what the fuck we were meant to be. Sorry, that got real dark.
Well, nostalgia is comforting. I mean, I have just been playing all like the Dawson's Creek playlist on Spotify for the past 2 weeks, because there is just something comforting than those as those songs that I used to sing and think were very deep and emotional when I was 14. And that now I listen to the lyrics, and I'm like, ugh, that doesn't mean what I thought it meant. I still like the song. I still like the song, and you know what? Take the comfort where you can get it these days, guys. And if that means rewatching every episode of Friends, or watching an entire season of a reboot of Party of Five in a day, or listening to the Dawson's Creek soundtrack on repeat, whatever you got to do.
Going and watching The Crow and listening to the album again and again and again.
Well, speaking of comfort, there is a new Ted Lasso out tonight. I know, like every week, I'm just spruiking Ted Lasso, which is not my job. They do not sponsor this show.
Maybe they should.
I just love it a lot, but I have already watched it, and I will warn you guys, it's another bit of an oof.
Oh, is it? Because the end of that last episode, I was like,
it's not all candy this week.
Last week wasn't candy either.
Oh, there was some good moments.
There was, but the end was a hard candy.
Oh, yeah. Chiquita Wagner is saying Pacey is Dr. Death now, which is why I cannot watch that show. Right. I will not have Pacey be ruined. I will not have Pacey be ruined. Can't do it. All right. Are we talked out on 90s reboots?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think we are. Look, thank you so much to all of the wonderful people. The chat has been fucking lively as shit tonight, and I have loved it.
Yeah.
Like, you guys have really just been...
Everyone's here for the 90s.
Yeah.
You can do more 90s chats if you guys want. You just drop us a line and let us know when you want to have a bit of nostalgia.
Yeah,
I mean, happening.
The list that you have made is
do a whole
amazing.
Nickelodeon cartoon deep dive.
Yeah, I feel like maybe there's a bit of an appetite for 90s cartoons or an Australian 90s kids TV episode.
Oh my God. Yes.
It's like the 90s of ABC.
Oh man. Yes.
You know what? I was even rewatching old clips from Play School the other day going, this is a classic. John was saucy as fuck.
John!
Oh my God.
John was the greatest. He was there for the adults. He was telling them the jokes.
Adsky's asking, do we talk about music here? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a little harder to do because we don't want to get DCMA'd, but
yeah, we could do that. Drop us come to our Periodic Table of Awesome Facebook group, or you can drop us an email and Friday nights are
periodictableofawesome.com.
Thank you. I knew that somebody would know that. I could know that. Yeah, I'm kind of liking our Friday night chats where we could just talk about anything. A bit fun.
Absolutely. And we have put out today the list of what we are doing for the month, which is handy, so that you can look ahead. And if you want to do the readings, you can do so. So that if you go to the Facebook, you'll see our schedule for the rest of the month. And there is an empty Friday night in there because sometimes we want a break. But who knows? Keep an eye out because we may be bored.
Yeah.
And there's also always the possibility that we may just decide to build some fucking Lego sometime or paint a picture sometime.
I've got some Lego coming.
Yes!
Yay! It's a small kit. It's only going to be one little session, but I do have some Lego coming.
Yeah, and that's the main thing. And yeah, please come back, join us. I have a Lego that needs to be built. And I get the impression that you enjoyed the painting session too last night.
That was relaxing as fuck.
Yeah.
Was it?
I enjoyed that.
Like a stitch
it wasn't very relaxing for me. I was fucking attacked as shit. And then
Quinny.
Like Beck.
yeah, you guys were great. Beck was just like, Quinny needs to go do some food. I was like, right, good, okay. Yeah. No, it was lovely. And we will put up the final artwork on socials because I believe that she has finished it now. Yeah, which I'm very impressed with. And yes, Adsky, I'm more than happy to paint you like one of my French girls. Hang on. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, it's time to sign off and watch Ted Lasso.
Yes.
Lovely.
Hope you all have a wonderful weekend.
Yes. I have been Quinny.
I've been Jill.
I've been Peter.
Thank you, everybody, and good night.
See yous.
I wanna live in a world full of heroes, not sit here counting zeros in a cubicle downtown. I wanna look out my window, see 'em flying, and swing across the horizon as I cheer 'em on so proud. The powered girl keeps staring at her face and call Colossus and have him teach me ways, and then we'd exercise. I'd be one of the guys. With martial arts from iron fist and wall, I'll dance her up and teach her all my songs. Oh, I wanna live in a world full of heroes, not cooking up these heroes at my parents' restaurant now. I wanna yell out Avengers assemble, not order up for Ethel. Yeah, we're right up cheeky now. Date Emma Frost and have her read my mind, or Magdalena, her artifacts I find, and then we catch a symphony. It'll just be her and me. Call Bucky Barnes and arm wrestle for hours. This NMA and bring her lots of flowers. Oh, wolf pack out. I'd run with Flash and do a marathon. Vacation to the savage land for fun. Oh, I wanna live in a world full of. I wanna live in a world full of heroes. Have NPR and CNN describe the latest teams. I wanna tuck my kids inside and read them stories of superhuman glory while the sleepy faces beam. I wanna live in a world full of heroes, not sit here counting zeros in a cubicle downtown. I wanna look out my window, see 'em flying, and swing across the horizon as I cheer 'em on so proud. See, powered girl keep staring at her face, and call Colossus and have him teach me ways, and then we'd exercise. I'd be one of the guys. With martial arts from Iron Fist and Wall,